Hey everyone. So the piece that I chose to discuss was Alberto Giacometti's Three Men Walking, two completed in 1949, and this would be the image of the sculpture. So Giacometti was a painter and sculptor. He worked with figurative sculpture, and around 1947 was when we see his characteristic style begin to emerge. After being involved heavily with the Surrealist movement, he shifted to a preoccupation with the human figure that would remain throughout the rest of his career. His characteristic style consisted of extremely tall and thin figures with elongated limbs and a very rough and eroded and heavily worked surface. These figures have very little volume or mass, which gives them a very eerie aura, and although we can recognize them as a human, they still look like they could be from another world. Giacometti said that he didn't necessarily sculpt the human figure, but he was more interested in shadows that human figures cast, and that's essentially what he was trying to capture with this piece. I think that these figures echo the loss of the ideal that Penelope Curtis discussed in our reading. Curtis explained that ideal beauty in the classical figure was strongly associated with authoritarian regimes and therefore increasingly open to criticism at this time. And with the recent end of the First World War and the impending Second World War, many artists were inspired to create the human figure in alternate ways. The piece, as well as many others Giacometti produced around this time, can be seen as his take on the experience of modern urban life. The group of figures appear on a thin, square bronze base, which can be suggestive of a city square or sidewalk. They're featureless and exist completely independently of each other. They don't interact, or do they look at each other, and it's as if they don't notice that one another is present, regardless of their close proximity. Giacometti said this about his observation of modern urban life. In the street, the people astound me and interest me more than any sculpture or painting. Every second, the people stream together and go apart. Then they approach each other to get closer to one another. They unceasingly form and reform living compositions in unbelievable complexity. So we can see from this piece that there's a synchronization in the movements of the figures, and Giacometti almost staged them to be in a choreographed motion. Their arm movements are the same, their strides are equal distance apart. It's kind of similar to the way that when we see people walking on a crowded street, they seem to almost be in sync, even though they have no relationship to each other. And finally, when I look at this piece, I would say that the space in between the figures is also equally important to the composition, because it further suggests that isolation and anonymity that Giacometti was so interested in. So that is it for my presentation. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to watching some of yours, and good luck for the rest of the week. Thanks.